I have a MAASVERSE crack theory. If you've not read everything, you know the drill. Pause this video, save and come back. This is my favorite theory ever, and I have accumulated so much information that I have fully convinced myself that this is true. I live and die on this hill, and I want to share it with you, and it's probably going to take more than one video because I have all of the ins and outs, and it's going to require a lot of talking. Let me just lay it out for you. I'm going to prove to you that Brannon is Brannon. I believe that Lidia Servos named her son Brannon for the legacy that he will become and not the legacy that he already was. So follow along. I'm going to have another part. Before you give me your just hear me out. Just hear me out because you know I always come with evidence. I always come with receipts. So just give it time. Let's go. To explain this theory, the first thing we have to do is we have to disprove that Lidia comes from Brannon's line. And I have recently posted a video called The Origin of Witches, where I do go through the timeline that we get from Tower of Dawn. And this is important because it talks about the healer fae that come from the Eastern continent where Maeve is, and it sort of gives us clues that these Asterian fae are the Eastern continent fae. And that's important because Rigelus, we know, brings over this second round of fae that are described in Celine's story as aggressive, shape-shifting fae with elemental power. We know from Emrys, Luca, and Rowan, the old fae that used to be there had this great wealth of elemental power because they were gifted it by the gods. And so that's why it sort of dwindled over time, that it's passed down through their lineage. Separate from that, Rowan and Selena, at the time, are talking in Mala's temple, and Selena says to him, "You once told me that you campaigned for a kingdom that no longer exists." And then she goes over to mention how the fae on this continent, the Eastern continent, are much more aggressive and less docile than the fae from the Northern continent. Why is this important? We know, again, that the fae Rigelus brings over are aggressive, shape-shifting, elemental fae. We know from Luca, Emrys, and Rowan that the fae on the Eastern continent are shape-shifting, elemental, aggressive, trained in combat fae. We also know that that kingdom, likely the Asterian kingdom, which is said to have existed on the eastern side of Dornell, we know that that kingdom no longer exists and that the fae in the southern continent are no longer there. Why is this important? The fae that came over with Rigelus were the Asterian fae. All of the different accounts of these fae are the same. We also know that Maeve wanted to sort of keep the best of the best as pets. This is also shown in Heir of Fire. From Tower of Dawn, we learned that part of the healing fae that escaped Dornell were believed to have gone to Terrasen, but that a good portion of them went to the southern continent and they fought down there and they ended up disappearing. Probably the fae that went with Rigelus, or at least a portion of them. They disappeared, and this all happens before Elena and Gavin are ever born, before Terrasen is founded or exists. Lidia is not of both the fae that come over with Rigelus, which are Asterian fae, the Eastern shape-shifting elemental aggressive fae. She's not that and of Rowan and Aelin's line because they didn't exist at the same time. Rowan and Aelin weren't even together when the Asterian kingdom was no more. When the fae healers in the south were gone, there and gone, Aelin and Rowan were not together. And the whole reason that people connect Lidia to Aelin and Rowan is the ring, is the ruby ring. But I have an answer for that, and it's fun. What do we know about Lydia's father? We know that he's a deer shifter. We know that he is a monster. He's such an a-hole that Lidia kills her own father for the things that he did to her, for the things that he did to other people. He is such a POS that his name is not worth mentioning. Description of her father makes me think, how could we believe that this is Rowan and Aelin's line? Their line is corrupt? Are we just willing to accept that? Because I think at this point now we have two reasons why we can say with certainty that Lidia is not from Rowan and Aelin / Brannon's line. Because again, her father's a monster. He's not even worth naming. That cannot be our Rowan and Aelin and Brannon. That's his legacy. Lydia's piece of shit father, we don't know his name. No. And the other side of it is it doesn't make sense with the timeline from how I'm interpreting it. Now, there might be facts that I'm missing, or there might be new developments in future books, but with what we have, it doesn't line up that Lidia would come from Brannon through the second set of fae that were said to have come with Rigelus. Period. And now that we know that the Asterian Fae were likely gifted their wealth of magic from the Asteri, because again, we know that the gods were elemental. It makes sense to assume that Lidia has her fire-wielding, deer-shifting ability from her Asterian Fae lineage. And not only, again, is this told to us in Heir of Fire, but Danica confirms this, or at least Lydia's account of speaking with Danica confirms that she's told her that. She said, our lineage comes from shifter Fae with elemental magic. She can't be of Brannon's line because she's Asterian. We do learn something very interesting, though, about Lydia's father, that he has a family heirloom ruby ring that he passes down to Lidia, and that is the only thing that she says is of worth from his line. She passes this family heirloom on to her children, and the ring itself is described as an imposing ruby. It is obscenely huge. Now, based on the very brief description of Rowan's ring, it is a thick band, yes, but it is an elegantly cut ruby. I think if it was an obscenely huge ruby, we would get more explanation from that, but that doesn't totally discredit. What does give more credit to my theory is some further information I want to provide in part 2, where I tell you exactly what I think happens with Brannon and Lydia's lineage and how it all comes together. So let me know what you think. Comment if you're excited for the second part, and I'll be back with more.